19 Catholic miracles. That science will never be able to explain history is full of miracles that defy logic. Over the centuries, thousands of miracles have been attributed to God, Jesus Christ, the Virgin Mary in her many forms, and countless saints of the Catholic faith. Most of these events, such as unexplained healings, sudden recoveries, and strange physical phenomena, have not been officially recognized by the Church. In some cases, advances in science have offered rational explanations that removed the mystery, but there are still certain events that continue to leave scientists speechless. Today, we'll tell you about miracles that science has yet to explain. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one of our videos. The aneurysm that vanished without a trace. The first case took place in Costa Rica, and it was so astonishing that it was used as evidence in the canonization of Pope John Paul II. It all began when Floribet Mora Diaz was diagnosed with an inoperable brain aneurysm. Her doctor, Dr. Carlos Vargas, gave her just 1 month to live. The situation was dire. Floribet could barely move. She couldn't even hold a spoon to feed herself. But then, something extraordinary happened. After praying intensely to John Paul, the woman says she felt an unexplainable energy move through her body. Within days, she began to recover at an astonishing rate. When she returned to the doctor, Dr. Vargas couldn't believe what he was seeing. The aneurysm had completely disappeared. He reviewed the scans over and over again, double-checked the labs, reread his original diagnosis, and found no explanation. There wasn't even a mark left in my head to show there had ever been an aneurysm, Floribet said. Later tests in both Costa Rica and Italy confirmed the same thing. The aneurysm no longer existed. The Catholic Church officially recognized this event as a miracle. The consecrated host that revealed a human heart. In October 2008, during a mass at the Church of St. Anthony in Sokolka, Poland, a priest accidentally dropped a consecrated host. Following liturgical tradition, he placed it in a small vessel of water so it could dissolve over time. But a week later, Sister Julia Dobowska, the church sacristan, noticed something alarming. The host hadn't dissolved, and in the centre there was a red stain that looked like a blood clot. The parish priest, Stanislaw Jancewski, was alerted immediately. Soon, the entire local church community, including Archbishop Edward Ozorowski, was baffled by what they saw. The Archbishop ordered a scientific investigation. 2 pathologists from the Medical University of Białystok, Dr. Maria Sobaniec-Latowska and Dr. Stanislaw Solkowski, analysed fragments of the host. Their findings were astonishing. It contained human heart muscle tissue, not just from any heart, but from one in a state of agony, as in the final moments of life. Even more incredible was the discovery that the muscle fibres were fused with the structure of the bread itself. According to the specialists, this molecular integration of human tissue and bread could not have been fabricated. To this day, no known technology or scientific method can explain how that fusion happened. Peritonitis vanished after a visit to Lourdes. The third case occurred in the early 20th century and still sparks debate. Mary Bailey was suffering from terminal tuberculous peritonitis. For 3 years, she had been treated unsuccessfully by 8 doctors at hospitals in Lyon and Saint-Foy, France. Her condition was so critical, it seemed like a lost cause. Moved by her faith, Bailey travelled to the famous Lourdes Sanctuary, where tens of thousands of miraculous healings have been reported. There, she bathed in the spring's waters and prayed at the grotto where Bernadette Soubirous saw the Virgin Mary. Soon after, her body began to recover at an astonishing rate. Dr. Alexis Carrel, who would later win the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1912, witnessed her recovery. Up until that point, Carrel had been skeptical of miracles, but this experience left a deep impression on him. He testified that the healing was complete, sudden, and without any possible medical explanation. And yet, the Church did not officially recognize the miracle. Why? Because the protocols of the Lourdes Medical Bureau are incredibly strict. In this case, certain aspects of Mary's mental state before the healing were called into question. But that doesn't change the fact that even the most prestigious scientists were left without answers regarding her recovery. St. Joseph of Cupertino, the Flying Saint. One of the most astonishing cases in the Vatican archives is that of St. Joseph of Cupertino, a humble Neapolitan friar from the 17th century. He was canonized by the Catholic Church and was known for possessing a gift that defies natural laws, the ability to levitate. More than 70 levitations were documented as part of his canonization process, making him the saint with the most recorded events of this kind. At one point in his life, his ecstatic states were so frequent that he was removed from the choir, since during religious ceremonies he would begin to rise into the air, disrupting the Mass. Many believed it was all a trick, until Pope Urban VIII himself wanted to see it with his own eyes. According to the accounts, in the presence of the Pope, Joseph entered a trance and suddenly rose into the air. The Pope was stunned, and history was made. Even the Protestant Prince John Frederick witnessed one of his levitations. He was so shaken by the event that he abandoned his Protestant faith and converted to Catholicism. The Pope who survived 4 bullets. On May 13, 1981, the world was shocked when Pope John Paul II was the target of an assassination attempt in St. Peter's Square. The attacker, Turkish national Mehmet Ali Agca, shot him 4 times, twice in the abdomen, once in the arm, and once in the hand. According to Bishop Slawomir Oda, who oversaw his canonization case, Agca was a professional hitman, a trained killer, but somehow he missed his target. The documentary Wojtyla, The Investigation, directed by journalist José María Zavala, argues that the Pope's survival was a miracle. One of the bullets passed through vital organs, but seemed to change its trajectory, as if an invisible force had redirected it. John Paul II lost 75% of his blood. He was literally bleeding out, and survived. He himself said he owed his survival to the Virgin of Fatima, whose feast day happened to fall on the day of the attack. The Weeping Virgin of Syracuse. In 1953, in the Italian city of Syracuse, a statue of the Virgin Mary moved the world. People said she was crying, and not just for a few minutes. She wept for 4 consecutive days. The statue, made of plaster, was a wedding gift to Antonina and Angelo Iannuso, a young couple living in a modest home. On August 29th, Antonina noticed something strange. Tears were falling from the Virgin's eyes. They alerted the parish priest, who arrived with several witnesses, including a doctor named Michel Cazzola, a well-known atheist. No one had anything to say. The tears were collected and analysed scientifically, and the results were astonishing. They had the exact chemical composition of human tears. Years later, in 1994, Pope John Paul II visited the site and delivered a phrase that still echoes in the faith of millions. These are tears of sorrow, but also of hope. They are tears for those who reject the love of God. The miracle of the elder, flesh and blood on the altar. One of the earliest Eucharistic miracles officially recognized by the Church occurred in the 8th century in the small Italian town of Lantiano. A monk was celebrating Mass, but he had doubts about the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. During the consecration, as he spoke the words, "This is my body, this is my blood," something extraordinary happened. The bread turned into living flesh, and the wine into blood, which later solidified into 5 distinct clots. Since then, the miracle has been preserved in a silver reliquary. In 1971, pathologist Dr. Edoardo Linoli analysed the flesh and clots, and his conclusions were astonishing. The tissue was human heart muscle, and the blood was type AB, the same blood type found on the Shroud of Turin. Even more baffling, the clots all weighed exactly the same individually as they did together, something that defies the laws of physics. Our Lady of Zaytun. An apparition, witnessed by thousands. On April 2nd, 1968, something extraordinary happened in Zaytun, a district of Cairo. A Muslim mechanic named Mohammed Farouk Atwa saw a woman dressed in white standing on top of the Coptic church of St. Mary. He thought she was about to jump and called the authorities. But he wasn't the only one who saw her. dozens of people gathered and witnessed a glowing figure above the church. The apparitions continued for 3 years, with reports coming in weekly and even daily. The crowds grew into the thousands, gathering in prayer. Among the witnesses were journalists, photographers, TV cameras, and even Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser. Images of the phenomenon spread around the world, and many Christians believed the figure was the Virgin Mary, appearing in a place where, according to Coptic tradition, she once took refuge with Joseph and Jesus during their flight to Egypt. Despite efforts to explain the event as an optical illusion or mass hysteria following the Six-Day War, the apparitions of Zaytun remain one of the most striking Marian mysteries of the 20th century. The blood that comes to life. Saint Januarius, the patron saint of Naples, was beheaded in the year 305 during the brutal persecutions of Emperor Diocletian. But his story didn't end with his death. It began a legacy surrounded by the unexplainable. Every year, on September 19th, the martyr's blood, preserved in a sealed glass vial, appears to defy the laws of nature. It changes from solid to liquid during prayers and sacred ceremonies. A priest holds the relic next to an urn containing his skull, and the blood begins to liquefy and expand, as if something divine is responding to the faithful's devotion. Some scientists believe this is a property of non-Newtonian fluids, substances that change state when stimulated. But what keeps the mystery alive are the years when the blood did not liquefy. 1939, as World War II began. 1940, when Italy entered the war. 1943, during the Nazi occupation of Naples. And 1980, when a devastating earthquake struck the region. Coincidence? Believers see these as divine warnings of looming tragedy. And in 2024, it happened again, but something was off. On December 16, 2024, Naples held its breath. That day, the city honours Saint Januarius, and as tradition dictates, his blood was brought out for the faithful. From 9 in the morning, thousands of people waited, eyes fixed on the vial, but the blood didn't move. Hours passed, and anxiety grew. The old warnings of disaster lingered in the air. It wasn't until 5:40 p.m., nearly 9 hours later, that the blood finally liquefied. The crowd erupted in applause and sighs of relief. The miracle had occurred, but late. A subtle warning, a message many are still trying to understand. The friar who spoke to God. Padre Pio Pio of Pietrelcina, better known as Padre Pio, was a Capuchin friar born in 1887 who died in 1968. His life was filled with supernatural events. He bore visible stigmata on his hands, feet and side, resembling the wounds of Christ. Thousands sought him for healing, guidance, or miracles. He was said to perform impossible cures, read souls, and even appear in 2 places at once. Despite skepticism from within the Vatican, the people never stopped believing. He was canonized by Pope John Paul II in 2002 before more than 300,000 faithful in St. Peter's Square. The miracle that gave sight to a girl without pupils. Among all the wonders attributed to Padre Pio, the most astonishing took place in 1947. Gemma Di Giorgi, a Sicilian girl born without pupils, was brought by her grandmother to San Giovanni Rotondo. During the trip, Gemma said she could see. She described the sea, a boat. But her grandmother, skeptical, insisted on meeting Padre Pio anyway. During confession, she pleaded with him to pray for her granddaughter's sight. Without hesitation, he replied, "The girl can see, and you know it. Don't cry." That encounter sealed the miracle. Since then, Gemma has been known as a living symbol of an inexplicable wonder. The sign in the sky, before the war. In 1917, 3 Portuguese shepherd children claimed that the Virgin Mary had appeared to them in Fatima. One of her most disturbing messages was a prophecy. A great light in the sky would be the sign of an even greater war to come. On January 25, 1938, a massive aurora borealis lit up the northern hemisphere, visible from Canada to North Africa. In Paris, people thought the city was on fire. Lucia, the only one of the 3 children still alive, was certain. This was the sign. and she was right. The following year, the world plunged into World War II. We continue with more apparitions. If this video has you hooked, don't forget to give it a like. Number 15. The incorrupt body of Saint Bernadette Soubirous. In 1858, a humble French shepherd girl named Bernadette claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary 18 times in a grotto in Lourdes. But the real surprise came decades later. She died in 1879 and was buried without ceremony. In 1909, during the process of her canonization, her body was exhumed, and what they found was stunning. Her body was incorrupt, untouched by time. Her skin, facial features, and hands were perfectly preserved, even though the rosary she held was rusted. In 1925, her body was unearthed again and still unchanged. Today, Bernadette rests in a glass coffin in Nevers, France. For many, she is a living miracle that science has yet to explain. Our Lady of Akita. In a remote region of Japan in 1973, Sister Agnes Sasagawa claimed to have received messages from the Virgin Mary. But what made the world turn its gaze was a wooden statue that began to shed human tears. Scientists confirmed they were real human tears. Sister Agnes, who was completely deaf, was also mysteriously healed. The Bishop of Niigata authorized the veneration of Our Lady of Akita, and in 1988, Cardinal Shirayanagi stated that these events carry profound meaning for the Church and for Japan. Was it a miracle? A warning? The mystery remains open. The Shroud of Turin. This linen cloth bears the image of a scourged and crucified man. Could it be the face of Jesus? In 1988, carbon-14 testing dated it to the medieval period. But in 2024, a new Italian study used X-ray technology on the fabric and dated it back to the 1st century, reigniting the controversy. Moreover, the cloth's weave does not match other medieval textiles. For believers, the shroud remains the most tangible trace of Christ. For skeptics, it's still an unsolved mystery. The miracle of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's an image imprinted on a cloak made of agave fibres that should have disintegrated centuries ago. And yet, it remains intact. No pigments, no brushstrokes, untouched since 1531. Not even acid or a bomb placed beneath it in 1921 managed to damage it. And the most baffling detail? In the Virgin's eyes, 13 human figures are reflected, as if someone had captured, in another dimension, the exact moment Juan Diego presented the cloak to the bishop. A miracle that continues to fascinate millions. Our Lady of Lourdes. We return to the spring discovered by Bernadette. For over 160 years, its waters have reportedly healed thousands. 7,000 cases have been documented, and 70 have been officially recognized by the Church after extensive medical investigation. Some people were even healed without ever setting foot in Lourdes. Science remains doubtful, but the faithful continue to believe. What's behind these waters? Collective suggestion? Or something divine? Lourdes remains, to this day, a centre of faith and hope. If you think you can explain all these mysteries, share your thoughts below. We want to hear from you. Do you believe there's a logical explanation? Or are we witnessing events that simply defy all reason? Whatever your opinion, this channel is a place for curious minds and restless spirits. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because more videos are coming that will give you chills. You have no idea what's on the way. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Your time is valuable, and the fact that you chose to share it with us is a true honour. We'll see you in the next episode, where we'll keep exploring the secrets the world doesn't want you to know. This was ArchiveX, and we're just getting started. See you in the next video.